Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. We've got a fun episode for you today. Why? Because we're talking about our favorite subject, blockchain, and everything around it. And there has been a ton of headlines as we've been covering every single day on blockchain and crypto today, just before this first episode of VCTV. We run through the headlines, give a little context before we break it down with investors. And we know that every single day more and more is happening in these industries. Well, today is just like any other day in terms of the number of news headlines, but we've got some great investors to break down everything that's been happening in the last week. More importantly, some big headlines to remind you of what we might be talking about in today's episode. NFTs, non-fungible tokens, decentralized finance reaching all-time highs. Also, are people getting paid in cryptocurrencies? Who? Athletes? NBA franchises, maybe? Or individuals? What about faster blockchains and also bridges to other blockchains? We're going to be talking about the development layer and then central bank digital currencies. We've got the Bank of Japan, we've got the Bank of Thailand, we've got the Bank of India, all of the above getting into central bank digital currencies. And even the Bank of Japan has begun experimenting with their countrywide central bank digital currency that is in its first phase of, I believe, 3 that will roll out full-fledged throughout the country next year in 2020. But of the biggest news is Coinbase, S1, very public now. Everyone can see it. They also provided an earnings update yesterday on Q1 of 2021 and projected a outlook of what the rest of the year will look like as well. And just a quick headline rundown of what that is. Total verified users on Coinbase accounts went from 43 million at the end of 2020 up to 56 million. 13 million additional people in 3 months joined Coinbase and began trading. Active users itself over 4x. Trading volumes went from $335 billion in Q1. All of last year, Coinbase did just under 200 billion, almost 2x the amount of trading volume in 3 months. What does all that mean? What does it all mean for you? What does it all mean for you building, investing, etc.? We're going to break it down here for you on VCTV, but a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making today's episode of VCTV possible. Check us out on LATOKEN.com to hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family. I'm your host, Kyle. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the rest of our panel today to break all of this and much, much more down as well. David, welcome first and foremost back to the stage today. A little introduction and background for everybody.
Absolutely, Kyle. Thank you very much. Good morning from where I am, but where you are in the world, maybe afternoon, evening, whatever it may be. And that's the world we and the blockchain and cryptocurrency now live in. I am David Towell. I am the president and co-founder of ProChain Capital. ProChain Capital is a crypto-focused hedge fund. We invest multidisciplinary in the crypto space. We invest directly in tokens. We also invest in equities and debt of companies that are involved in cryptocurrency and in blockchain endeavors. And then we also have some private investments as well. Thank you very much for allowing me to join, and excited for the panel.
Wonderful. Same. It's going to be a great panel. We got a great ton of topics to talk about. Adrian, welcome back. Little intro, little background.
Hello, everybody. I'm Edwin Kwesi. By the way, we are in the middle of a power failure, so I'm on a mobile phone, on the access point on the mobile phone, and the lamp is connected through a USB on my laptop. So at least 1 hour and a half, I have power. So I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. My genius zones are marketing, sales, and business development, and I love keeping my hands dirty in these areas. Besides my advisory roles and board membership slots, I'm actively involved with CloudCoin Consortium. CloudCoin is a post-blockchain digital currency. And by the way, I will announce something which will happen tomorrow. So will be announced first here. Exclusive, a breakthrough.
Oh, wow.
Also, I'm involved in Faster Capital, which is a Dubai-based accelerator and incubator for companies, Saga Global Ventures, which is a London-based venture capital firm, and also I'm a mentor in Richard Branson's Virgin Startups program in UK. Thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adrian. Ready to hear this exclusive news, breaking news here in just a few minutes. We'll hold for the audience before we get there. But Irfan, welcome back to the show as well. Last but not least, a little intro and background for everybody.
Thanks, Kyle. Excited to be back. Good morning, everyone, and afternoon or evening to anyone from other parts of the world. I think David rightfully put it. We live in a globalized world. My name is Irfan. I'm the managing director of Irfan Holdings. Irfan Holdings is the parent company which makes direct investment in angel investments in early stage companies, as well as we do advisory roles in companies. I also sit on the board of a couple of venture capital firms, mainly in deep tech and emerging technologies and energy. Those are areas that I essentially look into. Of course, blockchain, fintech, and emerging market are my personal interest areas. So anything around that space, I've been involved with, and I've always loved to be part of. So looking forward to discuss this interesting topic. Back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And guys, I mean, again, tons of headlines. We talked pre-show, and even just a few minutes ago, I read off big news from Coinbase. We had the Bank of Japan's, again, central bank digital currency project starting to roll out, which is exciting. We have Credit Suisse, who's testing a blockchain service to settle stock trades in under 2 hours, again, leveraging blockchain to avoid some of the issues that we had seen in 2020. We've got the NBA franchise known as the Sacramento Kings that is going to be offering all of the entire organizations of employees, not just the athletes on the team, but the entire organization, the ability to be paid in Bitcoin as their salary option. We're seeing this more so in other organizations and in cities, with the city of Miami as well. I mean, this is crazy. There's so much happening. Even the NFT space, the non-fungible token space, is out of control. As we mentioned pre-show, we've got multiple corporations, brands, individuals getting into the space. Today, NFL quarterback Tom Brady, along with retired quarterbacks from the NFL, Eli and Peyton Manning, also releasing their own NFTs. McDonald's and Playboy both announced that they would be releasing collections of NFTs as well. And why I'm mentioning that for today's topic is there's also a discussion of how NFTs may play a role in this future of decentralized finance that we are building into as well, whether that be loans, whether that be digital twins of everything once physical, etc. So much happening. But without me rattling all this off, I would love to hear from each of you. So Irfan, let's start it with you. I mean, what are you seeing from your side as an investor, but then also as an operator and individual in this space on all sides? How are you seeing this all evolve so quickly over the days here, it seems like?
First of all, thanks, Kyle, for bringing all the news in front. I thought, specifically the news on Vivek, willing to pay his players in Bitcoin, or giving them the option, is massive. Of course, right now I think we're at the point where everything is sort of like culminating for years that's been happening. I mean, it's uncontrollable, and at the same time, one's got to be cautious, right? So I mean, specifically as an investor, I'm trying to look into the area with a little bit of pinch of salt. Obviously, it's hard for right now to find people who doesn't know NFT or who is not involved in NFT, right? So now that's the scarcity versus years ago. Now that said, these are all great things for the blockchain and the overall blockchain industry, and I think you rightfully mentioned, right? So what could these sort of digital asset, what kind of advantage would it create, in the coming days? Of course, it's art, Okay, we love art, to people who appreciates it. But let's get down to basics, because we still have about 90% of the world still trying to meet basic needs, and with the pandemic, a lot of global industries and people have been hit. So now the question is that how are we going to be able to translate this new development and innovation of these non-fungible tokens into those areas and in those spaces? So I think these are things that I'm critically looking into. And of course, it sounds epic to think that you're going to be trading all-star baseball cards, but I still think that there are fundamental things that we could be and we should be looking into with this new innovation. Back to you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so much potential here, and looking at all sides of this. And I want to call out one thing you mentioned as well before we continue on is regulation. So all of this is happening so fast, and there's a lot of things skipped over. As we talked, as you start to pay your employees in cryptocurrencies or digital currencies, such as Bitcoin. I mean, there's a whole infrastructure around how that's going to work. I mean, the future of work, as we'll bucket it as, of payroll to taxes. I mean, there is just a number of things that go into that. We don't talk about that yet. There's some great companies out there building in this space, but we don't talk about it. And on the note of regulation, so following Coinbase's S1, Coinbase, Fidelity, Square, a number of other firms came out and have formed what they're calling the Crypto Council for Innovation, CCI, that will help to define how regulation may or may not be put into place and work with policymakers, start being a bigger voice for the benefits of these digital currencies. Because to your point, things are moving so fast that in the blink of an eye or day to day, things are changing. We have to be thinking about these things, both as an entrepreneur or operator and as an investor, and more importantly, as an investor, as you're investing in these projects, right? Whether that be equity or otherwise as well. And David, coming to you, I mean, you're looking at all sides of this as well. I mean, equity to tokens, to traditional finance, to decentralized finance, to all of the above. How are you seeing all of this evolve from your side?
So I'd like to make 3 points. I'm not going to make them all in this soundbite, but the 3 points that I'd like to make are: first, Confluence. The second, going to some boring stuff, like you mentioned, the regulatory, the legal, and then more importantly, kind of use cases that are really, I'd say, underneath the surface, but are extremely powerful. And then lastly, I'd like to talk about NFTs and the acquisition of Topps trading cards by a SPAC, which puts all the buzzwords possible today into one nice package. So to go to the first is the Confluence, and this is really what I'm seeing. Again, I'm not a technical guy. I have an incredible chief investment officer that I work with who is incredibly technical and capable and codes and knows the underbelly of all the business. But to me, what I'm seeing in terms of development in the industry is that cryptocurrency, blockchain, and NFT are all going to go ahead and converge. There's going to be, the technical guys will always have lines that go ahead and differentiate. I think for the average user or the retail person, none of the differences are really going to make much difference because the experience from the consumer's perspective is going to be the same. And I think that that's incredible because in the I will always go back to the analogy of the early days of the internet, which digitized services, and we're now digitizing assets. Early days of the internet, there were so many different types of protocol. There were lots of different nuances that a lot of the technical people understood. Over time, a common language or a commonality was reached, and then everything exploded thereafter. And I think the same thing is happening right now in this space, in the digitization of assets space. And I think it's happening faster than it happened with respect to the internet. And I think that very soon, a lot of these monikers are not going to be that appropriate any longer, and we'll just be either using one of them or a new one in order to go ahead and describe things that are going on. And the last point that I'd make is just the speed. It's dizzying. My fund in March, we had to send out 2 investor updates. First of all, most funds only send out a quarterly update. We like to send out a monthly update. In March, I sent out 2 updates because there were so many developments that happened during the course of the month that it was just going to become a tome if I waited till the end of the month to send out an update. And I think that that's going to continue. And I think that that's great for the space. And I think there are a lot of ways to make money in the space, which is excellent for investors.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty. And to your point of speed, I mean, we talk about this every day. Every day, blockchain and crypto, first thing in the morning, breaking down the headlines and what's happening with context as well. And I mean, it's just getting bigger and bigger. We talked earlier pre-show, we have near protocol bridging to Ethereum, allowing for cross-chain interoperability. I mean, that has been worked on for a very long time. Just to caveat that, it has taken that team a long time to put that together. But all of a sudden it's now here. So now you're talking about interoperability at the development level, the infrastructure level. What does that do for the future of things as they develop out as well? And Adrian, I want to come to you next and hear your thoughts on all of this, all of these happenings, and maybe you'll tease out this breaking news that you have for us as well. And then I want to break a few more things down around the industry.
Okay, Kyle, what I'm seeing over the last few months is that I started to receive 2-3 pitches every day for new crypto and fintech projects. Before that, the rhythm was like 2-3 a week. In total, with all the other niches, anyway, they were like 1,000 pitches a year. But nowadays, 2-3, in some days 5 pitches of new projects in crypto and fintech, which is pretty cool. Most of them are doing the same thing. Very few of them have like technological breakthroughs or new services, but it's amazing how many people are putting their soul, their resources, their time into building into this space. This is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. I mean, this may be one of the most exciting times to start building something, and not just because it's going to be a big vintage year, as we've kind of come to the conclusion with so many discussions here on VCTV from an investment standpoint. But I mean, there's so much happening, as both David and Irfan mentioned. I mean, all industries, the digitization as a whole of industries and consumers and enterprise, it's gangbusters. I mean, just pick an industry and just go. And this is a great time to start building. And you're exactly right, Adrian, on this. Also, I wanted to make just a quick headline news as it came across my desk just moments ago. Plaid, as we're talking about decentralized finance and fintech today too a little bit, Plaid has announced a $430 million Series D raise after they did not complete the merger with Visa as well. So to Adrian, to your point, there's a lot happening, a lot of testing, a lot of progression at the same time. There's also a lot of capital, a lot more capital going into some of these projects at the infrastructure level, which is key. That's a very, very key point as well. So David, you had a few points. You got one out. I feel like you got 2 more. I want to come back to you on number 2 if you're ready for it.
Yeah, I'll come back on number 2. And interesting, you raising Plaid. To me, one of the most exciting slash, profitable, actionable points of previous weeks are things that Visa and PayPal announced. Not as front page exciting stuff as NFTs, but I think more important, which is Visa announced that they're settling transactions in a USD backed stablecoin over Ethereum, and PayPal is allowing a checkout option using cryptocurrency, and the CEO went ahead and bought a pair of ostrich boots, cowboy boots, as the token of the first transaction. To me, those things are incredibly revolutionary, because there is no difference now for the user, meaning you have an account, you have a wallet, you have some form of payment, and these payment processing firms are now going to go ahead and be able to convert these things for you in order to pay a merchant, or to settle a transaction, and you will be none the wiser. And to me, that's the best possible point to reach, which is, this is no longer for the people that only understand or are only willing to go ahead and venture into new territory. This now makes it accessible and almost requires participation by every user. And that to me essentially is full validation of cryptocurrency, of Bitcoin, of the blockchain. And that's just starting now with payments, right? Payments is the easiest thing. We're now going to branch out, to so many other types of static assets that are going to be able to do, exactly the same thing. Again, I think it's boring stuff, but in terms of magnitude of dollars that will be affected by this, I don't think there are any bigger happenings.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't stop. Irfan, anything to add? I see you shaking your head and smiling on that as well. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think David touched on the most important point, right? This is the low-hanging fruit. This is something that one could be looking into, and this is massive, and this is particularly, as I was always saying, that what got me interested in blockchain in the very early days, from the country that I kind of grew up, there is a huge number of people who are unbanked. That's number one. Two is that, right now, businesses, not even in developing world, even in developed world, business to business financing, needs to improve and needs to touch in, specifically in the SME sector, right? So now, and this is the avenue that one could be looking at, and a lot of there are companies which are actually looking into it, and we need more of that, right? So obviously, this is no brainer that financing, and blockchain has direct correlation. Specifically the problems that the traditional and the existing financial industry faces, right? So whether it comes to identity verification, whether it comes to transaction fees, etc., and even the infrastructure, right? When we are talking about finance in a global scale, some places is more developed than other places, and the financial structures are more developed. But at the same time, even in those developed financial structures, you see, pitfalls, right? I mean, we've seen what happened to HSBC, such a large, financial institution about 4 or 5 years ago, had major AML gaps, which led to, the Mexican drug cartel, moving money from Mexico and other Latin American countries, and it kind of like bypassed the traditional financial industry. Now, these are areas that one, blockchain has major impact in those areas. So back to you, I think, this is an exciting no-brainer space.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrian.
In which aspects do you want to add something? Because we spoke about so many things. While Irfan and David were talking, I was thinking how important is to build an infrastructure when you want to develop a new industry, and how important and what unique chance is for some players to be the ones who are building this infrastructure, because in the future, they will have like the cherish from the cake all the time. And the fact, as you mentioned, that Coinbase goes public, I believe shows that this industry, how far it started to go. So I believe that a lot of founders now are looking at this industry. Maybe before they say, okay, I don't want to do crypto. There were so many investors saying, we don't invest in crypto projects. This is our thesis. We are not interested. But now, when they see the exchanges going public, when they see other things happening, and it's for real the beginning of the mass adoption, which is a unique moment in our life, a good moment. COVID was a unique bad thing, you know. It's so exciting, and this infrastructure is a huge effort. It's not easy. Ripple reached $1 yesterday. Look at the struggles they are going through with the regulations. We don't want to talk about that. Even so, it grew like 40% yesterday, something like that, which was pretty cool. So things are putting in a certain rhythm which becomes unstoppable.
Well, and what's missing, in your opinion? What's missing to making some of that happen?
First, we need more time, because it doesn't happen. We humans, we are wired for shortcuts. Of course, I would like to found a startup tomorrow and go public in 1 month, not 1 year. Okay, everybody wants that. It's the same with everything. So first, founders, investors, and even users, they have to exercise more patience. Of course, investors, they want huge rewards, return on investments. The founder wants to be in the billionaires list as soon as possible. By the way, yesterday, I believe, today, Forbes issued the new billionaire list, showing that 2020 was outstanding in the billionaires world. The same principle working: richer get richer and poorer get poorer. That's it. And people start to realize that this industry has so much potential, and people think, gosh, why I didn't do this 1 year ago, 2 years ago, are exercising regrets. The thing is, start building. And of course, it's hard, it's not easy. If it would be easy, anybody would do it. But I said, we humans, we are wired for shortcuts. And if we want to build that, we need to have more patience and to put our bots, not to use a forbidden word, to work. And to defy the odds, to remove the obstacles. This is by innovation. This is by trying things which were never done before. And it's not easy. But first, we need to exercise more patience. This is essential. Without that, patience, more time.
Well, and we've talked about it here before as well. This is, what we're talking about when it comes to decentralized finance, or just in general with fintech services and things like central bank digital currencies and stable coins and all of this. I mean, that's just that financial infrastructure is a decades long process, plural. Decades. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And sorry, real quick, Adrian, we're only about 10, maybe 12 years really into this entire industry and revolution that is what we're talking about today, which is super exciting. And as David mentioned, and along with Irfan, a ton has happened very, very, very quickly, faster than in almost any industry, as David mentioned, around the internet. that we saw in the 90s and into the early 2000s. Now you have this stuff happening on a monthly basis versus on a yearly basis. That's how condensed. And now it's getting even faster on a weekly basis in some cases. So things have moved very aggressively, but to Adrian, your point, you still have to be patient. There's still a lot of change to be made. And then go ahead, Adrian. I got David. I got another question for you.
Yeah. Just very short. I wanted to put something on the market cap of cryptocurrencies reached 1 trillion after like 10 years.
January 7th. Yep.
Sorry?
On January 7th of this year.
And reached 2 trillions 3 months after that moment.
Yeah, two days ago. So April 5th, I believe. Yep.
Which is
so in that 3 months, in that first quarter, again, why this is so meaningful, just to give you context to the audience. In the 3 months of this year, we've seen the market cap of digital currencies go from 1 trillion, or hit 1 trillion, to Adrian's point, hit $1 trillion, to then doubling to $2 trillion. We saw the NFT boom that went from a little bit of trading volume to over 800 million and growing trading volume. We have companies going public for the first time in an industry that no one believed ever would. And we have the entire infrastructures, from enterprise to consumers, us as individuals, to infrastructure completely being redefined. David, you had a third point. What was the third point?
Sure. So the top or Tops trading card company is being acquired by a SPAC. The SPAC part of it, is interesting. It's not for this conversation. That type of vehicle of taking something public is all the rage right now. Although I would expect some steam to come out of that soon. We've overshot, I think, in my opinion, at this point. But the acquisition is very interesting, and I'll pause for a second. My fund is, as we discussed, quickly earlier. We're multidisciplinary, so we're investing not only in tokens but in stocks. That enables us to invest in, say, Coinbase's IPO. It allows us to invest in justifiably Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Square, which all are in some ways, I'd say, less speculative, let's say, than tokens directly. And it provides for less volatility of the fund and ways to profit out of the space that tokens directly would not allow. And so to go to the top acquisition, which again is certainly something that our fund can go ahead and consider investing in, and has done pretty well so far, up 16%, I think, since the deal was announced. You're talking about a company that is embedded in sports since its inception. I can remember being back in elementary school and flipping baseball cards at recess time. And the NFT craze that is going on now is a perfect setup with respect to things like sports memorabilia and fads and things of that sort for Tops. And now you're dealing with a company that has an incredible historic track record in its discipline. On the one hand, it's being led by a very, very seasoned executive in Michael Eisner, who knows the media industry inside out. Granted, anybody who's been in the media industry, I guess, is now considered old media, and we're now in new media, but there aren't very many people that have experience in new media, and is being led by a very experienced investor by the name of Jason Mudrick. He is the gentleman who set up the SPAC and is now, taking the Tops company public. To me, that has incredible trappings in terms of being positioned for success in its space. So if you believe in NFTs, and if you believe that they are appropriately used for and will increase in value in the form of NFTs, I think that the TOPS is a great investment. This is not investment advice. This is my own opinion. But certainly our fund would take a look at, and if appropriate, take a position in a company like TOPS. To me, again, I think 6 months from now, this will be, a novelty-like transaction that we'll look back on relative to the bigger things that are going to happen. But to me, it's also a very serious transaction because you've got a serious company with serious history, a serious leader, and a serious investor. And I think all of that really speaks to, how far we've come, since we, started the NFT insanity with, diagrams of sneakers being sold as NFTs just a couple weeks ago.
Right. You're absolutely right. Irfan, anything to add? I see you shaking your head, taking notes over there. Anything to add? If not,
yeah, no. So it's interesting, because we've had like an array of discussion in this panel today, and of course, one aspect that I think I probably want to highlight, and this is, my personal sentiments as well as, from my personal experience, which is that, from the, obviously, the institutional investors are quite, are, I would say, gaining interest in this space, but at the same time, they're skeptical, a lot of them, major ones, so I wouldn't name names, but, these are the, some of the largest fund managers, endowment funds, as well as, veterans in the traditional industry. Now, the thing is that, and I think this goes back to the point about Adrian, right? When you are, when you are moving to the Wild West, which is great, it spurs, opportunity, it spurs, option to do a lot of things, but at the same time, you need to start thinking about how you're going to define the rules of the game. Besides that, also, and I think, we have had, a lot of good runs in the crypto industry. For those of us, who are not new in the industry, we've seen that in 2017, we've seen that, but then, at the same time, excessive hype has its, drawbacks. So what I'm trying to say over here is that it's great, everyone's, and there are impact areas that could be, but right now, we need to start thinking about and talking about, okay, so let's talk about NFT, right? So now when it comes to NFT, what are the standards, global standards that we're talking about, when it comes to trading, moving, as well as, what you mentioned earlier, how you're going to tax something like that. So the interesting thing also Adrian mentioned about the Forbes list, right? So if you look into the Forbes list, even some of the major, Bitcoin as well as crypto players, who's been listed in that space, to me, it seems like, the numbers don't add up. So what that tells you is that, a huge number of traditional, fiat is moving into this virtual space, but also as a sort of mechanism to kind of like keep it more and more discreet. Now, this doesn't help, especially when the regulators are getting increasingly concerned, and they're also super slow. I mean, blockchain has been here for 10 years. We do not have a fixed, regulation around the space, and now you have NFT popping up everywhere. I don't know how that's going to be dealt with. So I think it's about stepping back, especially like those who are the leaders in the industry. They need to take a step back, because the ball has been rolled. You don't need to like announce that every day. You need to take a step back and say that, hey, let's get the the leaders, the thinkers in this space, and let's get to work on this, because this is going to catch up very soon. So I think this is sort of like my viewpoint, and obviously it may differ to people, but this is the way I would go about in this, because there's so much opportunity. It's sort of like the internet, when initially it popped up, it has the ability to make a global impact. We just don't want to create this to be an exclusive impact in a certain area. the companies which are benefiting cannot be exclusive only, the top 100, etc. It should be from all parts of the world. So yeah, back to you, Kyle.
Well, you're a great point, and I want to come around for the last question of today's panel, and that is, what's next? If you're as an investor thinking of where to start focusing to either make investments for those that are listening, or to start building in, where are those suggestions? So for me, for instance, it's infrastructure. There's still so much infrastructure that needs to be focused on, and you can look at decentralized storage, which is a growing area. We've got even distributed computing, another big area. Identity, DID, decentralized identity. These are three core areas that you can really, really, really focus on as either an investor or as an entrepreneur. There's great companies, huge opportunities still, and much more to come as things begin to scale as well. So if you're looking at areas within the overall ecosystem or landscape of the industry to pay attention to, those are a few from my viewpoint. But Irfan, I want to come to you, Adrian, then you, David. And in this, this will be our closing thought. So give a shout out afterwards of where everyone can find you. But Irfan, let's start with you.
Thanks, Kyle. You can reach me through LinkedIn or Twitter. LinkedIn through Sheikh Mohammed Irfan, and Twitter through Simple Irfan. So obviously this is not an investment advice, but I look into these areas and I think they're interesting. So obviously decentralized finance is an area that I look into, but predominantly I'm also very interested in the RegTech space. So what that means is that in crypto RegTech space is a necessary risk mitigation. So I'm looking into that area too. And lastly, I think the other sector that I'm looking into is marketplace, e-commerce, specifically in the crypto industry. So these are the three sectors that I would right now be looking into deeper. Back to you, Kyle. Thanks. And thanks for an exciting panel.
You're welcome. Where can everyone find you?
LinkedIn and Twitter, just my name. So yeah, thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Adrian, to you, where should people be paying attention in this industry if they're looking to start building, start making investments, and then your shout out of where they can find you?
I want to use this portion to make the announcement, because it's about the future. It's about what's coming after blockchain, and you know that we discussed about this subject in over a few times, and Cloudcoin, which runs on radar technology and has its own infrastructure, is a non-blockchain currency. And the breakthrough is that starting this week is listed natively on an exchange called Folgory. And the deposits are done instant from the Sky Wallet to the exchange. It's a science fiction in the blockchain space. And even I was astonished, and I'm with this project for 4 years, and it opens a new era, I believe, where post-blockchain currencies, because there are few other technologies which are developed. By the way, radar is patented in US, which is big deal in this space, could be listed natively on the big exchanges, which is, I believe, a technological breakthrough. It's not something small. It's a change of paradigm. And I wanted to announce here first on VCTV, because the official announcement will be tomorrow.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Adrian, to you and the team. I know you've been talking a lot about this, and it finally is here. So congratulations. Little golf clap, because we don't have
Thank you very much.
To give you. There you go.
The team worked like crazy for this integration, among other things, and it's a breakthrough moment. I can be found on LinkedIn. I will respond to messages. Happy to help in any way I can, and of course can't wait to come back to the VC TV family.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Adrian. David, close us out. Areas of focus, and where can you be found?
So I actually would like to come back to Irfan and ask the question about the closing comment he made in terms of areas of focus. you said e-commerce as it relates to blockchain, and I was wondering if you could give an example of that, one or two maybe.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thanks, David. There are a few marketplaces that I have seen popping up. So one of that, so obviously, Poet is one of them, and it existed before for a while, and they're kind of like pivoting into that space. But what I'm looking more, and this is probably, I think, something that I would say I'm wishful thinking in the NFT area. So marketplaces in the NFT area, which would be, in the coming days, which would simplify process of trading. I haven't seen any robust project there. Obviously, there are some, but they're not. I wouldn't say that they haven't reached the level of credibility that one would look for. But Poet is an interesting area. And so before even BitCloud, I'm sure you know this, Steam existed. Steam had a marketplace for you to trade, your digital content. I don't know if they're running this right now, but it was. So Steam kind of like, eventually had some, went down to issues, but they built their system of the back of their original business in the gaming industry. So they gamified content sharing and trading. So I don't know how they're doing right now. So back to you, David. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the elaboration. For me, I think I've said enough. I'll just say that I can be found at david@prochaincap.com, david@prochaincap.com, and we can be found on Twitter at ProchainCapital.
Wonderful. David, Adrian, and Irfan, thank you so much again for everything today. Great episode, great panel, great conversation. So much packed into this time together today. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you share the episode, click like, and also subscribe to hear more on VCTV about today's topic around blockchain, decentralized finance, NFTs, and everything else we covered, along with all topics around industry, technology, and regions around the world. Also, check out the entire VCTV family and the archive on LATOKEN.com. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making today's episode possible. And as always, if you'd like to be on a show like today's, reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find that right spot for you. And also make sure to reach out to David, Irfan, and Adrian to connect with them further on today's topic. Make sure you add context, where you met them, where you heard them, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me along with today's guests all over the interwebs, on social media at Kyle Ellicott, along with everyone on their respected handles as well. Check us out here in just a few more minutes with more VCTV as we break down what's happening around the family office space and how family offices are building and investing in companies globally as well. With that, everyone have a great day, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.